whether you can hear me okay with this, so I'll speak a bit louder. I've now got myself back into a position I was in about a month, 6 weeks ago. Long story short, we've had some pretty horrendous weather locally, which has actually put us on the world stage. There's some news footage out there from the recent dam or potential dam breach we had in the village. If you've not been following the news, and long story short, there's a dam that was built in the 1820s, and recent rainstorms had damaged the dam wall, and there was something like 30 million gallons of water sitting, potentially going to flood the village below it. Now, I was out of the flood zone. My kids were at the mum's that week, and they were just outside the flood zone. My partner was just outside the flood zone. There were 1,500 people evacuated, which is basically all the people in the houses in the lower part of the village. And it was a major thing for us. Fortunately, nobody got hurt. A bit of distress, bit of anxiety for people, but it resulted in a good ending. If I get a chance later on, I'll have a walk over there and show you some footage of the work they're doing to basically rebuild a dam which is 250-year old. All of that was brought about by the horrendous August weather we've had, following the driest July on record, and that's over 250 years. We've had what I've got to say has been locally the wettest August I can ever remember. We had one day where I got a 5-gallon bucket outside, and that was filled with rain in an hour and a half. Now that's what, 10-12 inches deep. We've had humidity going up and down, and the net result of that is I've come in a couple of mornings and the whole of this lathe bed's been covered in flash rust, which has been removed. I've then done a bit more scraping, come in the next morning, same thing. You can't oil a surface between scraping cycles without causing yourself all sorts of problems. It does something to the surface of the cast iron and makes scraping it a hell of a lot more variable. Anyway, I've following some work Chris did, I've now finished the bed in terms of alignment and surface finish that I'm happy with, and total alignment end to end is back down to 1/4 thou variation. So if you like, it's plus or minus 1.5 tenths all the way down. So the next job is I've cleaned up the headstock casting of the flash rust, leaving that picked up. I've got to now bed the 4 pads onto the end of the lathe bed, so I've put a little bit of blue on those, and the next job is flip it over, rub it backwards and forwards, and I'm looking for sort of 8 to 10 points per inch. Anything over 50% coverage will be good enough. I'm sporting Mr. Fenner's t-shirt from Turn Right Machine Shop. Thank you, Keith. Yeah, it's been a busy month. Had a 2-week break in the Highlands with the kids and my partner and 2 dogs. Yeah, so I'll include a bit of footage of work I've done over the last month or so. Nothing that you haven't seen before. There's some close-up footage of me scraping, and yeah, as I say, it's pretty much redoing where I've been, which has been a frustration, but at least I'm back to square one again. So I'm just going over the bed of the lathe, tickling it up ready for sticking the headstock on. Now if you go back through some of my earlier videos, you'll see that I mentioned that Chris had started working on that far flat to put on it his own scraping pattern. Having got that to the point where it was ready for curling over, he then moved on to this one. Now I don't know how to put this. That was something in the region of 4 months ago. Chris has just got too much on in his own life, so I've decided to scrap the plan of getting Chris to finish it and do it myself. Slightly disappointed because I actually wanted to see how he finished scrapes, but time rolls on and got to get on with it. So I've gone over the far edge,
Got that back to a condition that I'm happy with, using the spirit level down at every 3 inches, so that I've got less than 2.5 tenths of movement on the spirit level from end to end. So it might go up 1/10 and down 1/10, or up 2/10 and down 2/10, but it all stays within a total of 2.5 over the length of it. It actually, the movement is less than 1/10, plus or minus, so I'm quite happy with that. So the next job is to bring in the next flat, and it's got to be coplanar with the other one. Now I'll show you a picture of the Schlesinger's specifications for a tool room lathe. I'm afraid these are copies of copies of copies. The bit we're interested in is the figure here, figure 1C, which is a crossways measurement with a spirit level. And you pick that up here, and it says bed flat or level in transverse direction, either plus or minus, but no twist permitted. And it gives a tolerance of 2.02 per metre, which is actually 2/10 in 10 inches. That's your tolerance. So I've taken the first reading on this end. Yeah, that's the important bit, or you can read it off that end, it doesn't matter. What is key, my 1, 2, 3 blocks aren't ultra precision. There's 2/10 variation in them. The bed of the spirit level is not perhaps as precision as it once was, so I've got to set it up so that everything is consistent. So the way I'm doing it, I'm using the inside face here against the blocks, and then I'm using that edge of the block to finger line there. I'm using that corner of the spirit level over that corner, and then basically this block gets shoved up against its the V-way, and then I'm lining up the edge of the spirit level with it, so that I've got basically the spirit level is level with the end of the blocks, and this block is at 90 degrees. It doesn't take much to give you half a division, and one division on this is half a thou, so half a division is 2.5 tenths. So we're looking at less movement than half a division. Right, enough of me waffling on. You got to decide which one's easier to spot difference. Now I would say the bubble's touching there, so we'll take it from this end. Now that's with the text reading upside down, and I have to keep everything the same, which is why you see F for front or F for tailstock, eh? So everything's in the same orientation now. I've slid it down from that end to this end. It goes without saying that you've got to make sure everything's clean, free of scrapings and whatever. So the 1, 2, 3 blocks, F for tailstock, with flush on the inside here. That's bumped up to there. That edge is flush there, and the corner line's up there. And that's the reading we got. So we are certainly within half a division. My estimation is that's maybe 2/10 out. It's just on tolerance. I'm happy with that. So the next job is just to spin the level round and walk it along. I've had the straight edge over it, so I know it's pretty flat. I'm just about, when I'm scraping the bed in now, I'm getting to a stage where I'm exceeding the accuracy of my straight edge. So I can't really grumble. I seem to have been messing about for days on this face. That's the tailstock V, inverted V. And anyway, I've now got it in alignment, and I've got a bearing surface I'm happy with. Anyway, so it's just these two front faces now. Yeah, bit frustrating given that I had the alignment a lot better than where it was when I started. Anyway, it's back to that and better. Give you an idea. So setting up the alignment jig from that face there, the needle running along here, sitting on that face, and if I start at that end, these are the figures in 10,000ths of an inch, so that's 0, the start point. You go down 1, 2 below, 2 below, 2 below, 2 below, back to 0, 0, 0, 1 below, 0, 0, 0, 1 below, 0, 0, 0, 1 below, 0, 0, 1 below, 0, 0, sorry, 1 below, 1 below. So I've got a total variation there of plus nothing, minus 2. But the wear area is if you like, the plus. I've just got a very small dip at the back here, but yeah, it's 2/10. I can live with that. Yeah, frustrating. Anyway, that's done. Lot of messing about with the just getting the jig so that I could get a consistent reading. You know, tap 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 until the needle stops moving. I've tried using a little piece of gauge block sat riding on this, but it's just another variable that moves and whatnot. So whilst it gives me an averaging, which takes it to, so I'm not getting plus or minus a tenth on the depth, it's just another variable which was giving me a 1/4 thou variation. Tee-hee, I splutter on. So this is the first flip result. So it's literally that. So this is the front end. There's no contact on that. And a tiny little bit there. Next to sod all on that, apart from the back edge there. hard on that face. A little bit here. And a little bit around that one. So yeah, got quite a bit of work to do on that, I think. Right, lunchtime. That's at about an hour. So I think that's 5 cycles. Hardest bit's lifting it up and pulling it back down. But we're now touching in all 4 points. This bit's alright, it's just got to keep going down. That one's definitely the lowest corner for some reason. What I'm going to do is get it so it starts actually looking like a bed, and then I'll have to check the alignment with the spindle in place. Yeah, hopefully I haven't messed anything up, but yeah, so we're getting there, bit of progress. Got a long way to go. Well, that's had about, I think it's 15 or 16 cycles now. Excuse the handheld. Getting a reasonable bed on 3 corners. This one's just starting to come in. You can see it's not hard on because it's basically smeared it around. It's not pushed it down into the peaks and troughs. So we're probably going to want another 15 or so cycles to bring it in. Once we've actually got it so all 4 are sitting right, we'll stick the spindle in, check it over. As for now, I'm pooped because it's heavy lump and hard work. Right, so I'm happy that I've got the seating on that good. During doing all this, I took out the little pin which pokes through there, which I understood sits through there, poking out to the side. Which my initial assessment of it was that it's to help with the alignment. Anyway, I sat thinking about that and I'm thinking it can't actually do out unless there's clearance on that, because that sets the alignment that way. And then when I've had a closer look and if you like, offered it up, you take the position of that in relation to the hole there. It's what, getting on for 1 3/4 inches away. That's the hole that lines up, 1 3/4 inches. There's nothing under there, so it must be something to do with this reversing mechanism. I don't know, but it's a pin, behind the pin is a spring and then a grub screw or set screw. So I'm going to put it back in, lubricate it up, put it back in, make sure I've cleaned the hole out. It moves freely now, and well, it'll be a voyage of discovery when we try and work out what lines up on it, because I can't think of anything. Anyway. There though. Definitely some kind of registration or yeah, registration I guess. So we shall see what it does. Anyway, I want to stick the headstock casting back down, stick the screws into it, and then lower the spindle in, see where it all lines up. Use my shoulder. Now there is a dowelled hole here, but chances of that lining back up are pretty slim, so I'll probably have to redowel that. I don't need to worry about that just yet. I'm not going to murder them up because don't need to yet. Right. Got to clean out the bearing shells, locate the clamp bolts and the heads, and then put the spindle in and run the alignment jig over it. Right then folks, well we're back onto the headstocks mounted, albeit not pinned. Spindle's in, bearing seats cleaned, and the alignment jig's set up. Now then, according to this lot, which is from Schlesinger's machine tool book, the tolerances are here, without boring you with showing you all the details. 12" on the end of the spindle. The spindle should be forward just over 1/2 thou, and it should be up 1/2 thou. That's the maximum allowable tolerance. It should not be further back or below. Okay, so it's either dead plumb, above and forward. What I've got is, long and short of it, the top's dead plumb, so not ideal but acceptable, and then the forward to backwards, I'm actually backwards by 0.035 mil, which is roughly 1.5 thou. So this end of the spindle centre, if you like, has to come this way, roughly no more than 2 thou, somewhere between 1.5 thou and 2 thou. So there's two ways I can attack that. I can adjust the V seats without cocking it about too much, basically taking it off that far corner and this near corner far side, so that the thing twists like that. However, I know that I've got to re-scrape the bearings. Well, this bit's a bit of a seat of the pants job. Roughly, if I've actually got 14 inches there. If I measure the distance from the point I'm out to the start of the bearing, it's not far off the same distance, i.e. that front bearing is near as damn it halfway. So if that end has to come forward 2 thou and I'm pivoting it around the back point, that means that would have to move 1 thou. Yeah? That's if I pivoted it at the back. If I keep the middle the same applies. If this end has got to come forward 2 thou, that end's got to go back 2 thou. It'll be something in the middle of that. Sorry, yeah, so I'm probably going to just take it out of the bearings when I'm scraping those in. I'm happier doing that, knowing that I've got wear in them that I'm compensating for. Yeah, I mean, I'm reseating it with 1 thou of removal, and as you can see, there's a fair bit of meat to go at, front and back. So that's my thoughts. The way you check it, I'll just stick the camera in the tripod and we'll have a look. Right, so we're set up with the test bar in the spindle, and because my spindle bore, the taper on it is, let's just say, beyond damaged, and I've honed it best I can, I'll never get this test bar perfectly aligned within it. So you have to allow for that when you're setting this up. And all I've done is shoved it in, made sure it's seated, and then I put the TTI on the top and spin it. Now I know that that test bar is absolutely round. It's to within plus or minus a tenth, and it's showing here that I've got what is it, 0.1 down 0.101, sorry, and up 0.01. So I know that there's 0.0 plus or minus 0.01 of a millimetre out of alignment with the spindle axes. So I keep rotating it until I've got that DTI reading 0, which is near enough there, and then I run the jig along 12 inches, and see what we've got there, which is 0. It's actually showing just below there, but I've done it that many times and got 0. And then you do the same thing with the DTI running at in the 4 to the 4. The reason for rotating it is you need to make sure that what you're checking is parallel at both ends, because if you spin it round and take 4 readings, unless you get them readings exactly the same orientation this end, you run all sorts of problems. That's how I'm doing it, and it seems to give me a repeatable measurement, which doesn't change the fact that this end is still pointing that way. It's horizontal and it should be up half a thou, and it's pointing backwards. I think it's 1.5 thou. So yeah, bit of work to do now.